In a quiet town where trust and faith were once sacred, a seemingly benevolent spiritual leader hid a deadly secret. What began as an innocent search for peace turned into a horrific tale of manipulation, murder, and a dark network that stretched far beyond one family's nightmare. This is the chilling story of Surya Baba, a man whose twisted beliefs and dangerous charisma led to unspeakable acts. Join us as we uncover the shocking truth behind a cult that thrived on fear and destruction. The question remains, how far does his influence really reach, and will justice ever be served? The Bhatia family lived in a quiet, middle-class neighborhood of Barauri, North Delhi. From the outside, they were the perfect example of a happy and successful Indian family. 13 members lived together in a 3-story house, running a grocery shop downstairs and a plywood business on the side. Neighbors often spoke of their warmth, unity, and how well-mannered the children were. The head of the family was 77-year-old Narayan Devi, the matriarch. Her sons, Bhavnesh, Lalit, and their families, lived under the same roof. Everything seemed normal. The Bhatias were respected, known for their discipline, and deeply religious nature. There were no outward signs of trouble. They celebrated festivals, helped neighbors, and actively participated in community events. Yet, what no one realized was that something dark was quietly unfolding inside the Bhatia home. In the months leading up to July 1, 2018, strange changes had started to occur. Family members who were once outgoing became more withdrawn. They stopped visiting relatives. They performed elaborate religious rituals at odd hours. Even their conversations became limited, guarded, almost mechanical. Still, no alarms were raised. In Indian society, private family affairs are often left unquestioned, hidden behind closed doors. Respect for elders and privacy are part of the culture. The Bhatias, so rooted in tradition, were trusted. But beneath that calm exterior, something terrifying was growing, a deep and dangerous belief that would soon lead them all to a chilling fate. June 30, 2018, was like any other day in Barauri. The Bhatia family went about their usual routines. Bhavnesh's wife, Savita, managed household chores. Lalit's wife, Tina, handled the grocery store downstairs. The teenagers in the house laughed and joked with neighbors, completely normal to anyone who saw them. In the evening, CCTV cameras captured some of the family members shopping at a local market. They bought groceries, milk, and oddly, wires, stools, and pieces of wood. There was nothing visibly alarming about the way they behaved. Calm, normal, smiling even. No one suspected that these items would be used for something unspeakable just a few hours later. At around 10 p.m., the family gathered for their nightly prayers. Neighbors reported hearing devotional songs and mantras coming from their house, louder than usual that night. It was a ritual they performed regularly, so no one paid much attention. Behind the prayers, however, lay a detailed and chilling plan. For weeks, perhaps months, the Bhatias had been preparing for a ritual that they believed would grant them salvation. A ritual so extreme, so final, that none of them would live to see the sunrise. Inside the home, handwritten notes were kept in a diary. Instructions for the ritual. Who would stand where. How their bodies should be tied. How their mouths should be taped. Detailed steps for attaining moksha, liberation from the cycle of life and death. The notes mentioned bad tapasya, a ritual involving hanging, but under a belief that they would survive it if their faith was strong enough. They believed that the spirit of Lalit's deceased father was guiding them through these messages, offering them salvation. As the city slept, the Bhatia family prepared for the night that would forever shock India and the world. The morning of July 1, 2018, started like any other in Barauri, quiet and uneventful. The neighborhood slowly woke up to the usual sounds of bustling streets and morning prayers. But in the Bhatia household, everything was about to change. It was around 7 a.m. when the first sign of something wrong emerged. A concerned neighbor, who had seen the body of family every day, grew worried when the house remained eerily silent. There were no usual sounds of breakfast being made or children getting ready for school. The neighbor decided to check in on them, but when they rang the doorbell, there was no answer. A few minutes later, the neighbor peered through the window, and what they saw inside sent chills down their spine. The bodies, hanging from the ceiling, in a grotesque and calculated arrangement. The neighbor rushed to call the police, but by the time they arrived, the situation was far worse than anyone could have imagined. The entire family, 11 members, were found dead, all hanging from the ceiling, bound, their mouths covered with cloth, and their eyes closed as if they were asleep. The scene was more than just horrific. It was eerie, calculated, and, most chilling of all, it looked like a ritualistic act. The bodies of the body of family, suspended in a symmetrical formation, each appeared eerily still, as if they had all fallen in place according to some grand design. The police were initially baffled. No signs of forced entry, no signs of struggle. The house appeared untouched, except for the dark horror that hung in the air. But as the investigation began, more unsettling details would come to light. In the living room, the police found a set of handwritten notes. They seemed like part of a plan, a twisted blueprint for their death. Some of the notes were prayers, some instructions for how the family members would hang. The police would later describe these notes as chilling, filled with references to spirituality, liberation, and a desperate attempt to reach what they believed was salvation. But why? Why would a family with so many young lives end it in such a gruesome and strange way? The investigators knew this wasn't a simple case of suicide. This was something else entirely. The police began by questioning the neighbors and extended family members. What they uncovered was a disturbing pattern. The body of family, who seemed perfectly normal to the outside world, had been hiding a dark secret for months. Chatter among the neighbors revealed that the body of family had been reclusive in the weeks leading up to their deaths. There had been reports of strange rituals taking place inside the home, as well as the family engaging in discussions that raised suspicion. But no one could have guessed how far this would go. The police turned their attention to the handwritten notes found inside the house. They were scrawled in a hurried, almost frantic way. The notes contained phrases about salvation, freedom from sin, and unification with God. The words seemed to indicate a belief in spiritual release or transcendence, suggesting that the deaths were part of some bizarre religious or spiritual act. The authorities quickly realized that the family's patriarch, Narayan Devi, had been deeply influenced by a spiritual guru in the years leading up to the deaths. This guru was an unorthodox figure who preached ideas of self-sacrifice and liberation through severe penance. It was unclear whether the guru had directly instructed Narayan Devi, but it was obvious that the family had come under the influence of this religious figure in their final days. Further investigation uncovered that the body of family had been following a set of rituals that grew increasingly strange. They had stopped attending their regular religious services, becoming more isolated, and reportedly even stopped talking to friends and extended family. This spiritual obsession seemed to consume their lives. The deeper the police dug, the more they realized that these rituals were not just random actions but a carefully planned series of events leading up to their deaths. The most chilling discovery was that they had been preparing for this moment for weeks. It wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment act. This had been planned, meticulously. Despite this, there was no concrete evidence to link any one person to the orchestrating of these events. No one seemed to have directly incited the deaths, except, perhaps, the guru. The police had found traces of spiritual practices within the home that alluded to blind obedience, but the question remained, who was ultimately responsible for guiding the family to this tragic end? As the investigation progressed, the police turned their focus to the spiritual guru who had evidently exerted considerable influence over the Bhatia family. The guru, a man named Surya Baba, had been known for his controversial teachings. Describing himself as a messenger of the divine, Surya Baba had gained a following of people who believed that his teachings would bring them closer to spiritual enlightenment. Surya Baba's teachings were rooted in ancient spiritual practices, but with a disturbing modern twist. He encouraged his followers to detach from worldly possessions and emotions, advocating for extreme rituals of self-purification. He believed that true enlightenment could only be achieved through suffering and complete submission to his guidance. It was an ideology that had slowly turned into a dangerous cult-like belief system. The police found records of Surya Baba's sermons and rituals. His followers were encouraged to sever ties with anyone who didn't share their beliefs, creating an atmosphere of isolation. The Bhatia family, particularly Narayan Devi, had embraced this ideology wholeheartedly. Investigators uncovered messages exchanged between the family and Surya Baba that revealed an increasing sense of urgency about spiritual purity and the need for extreme measures to release themselves from the grip of worldly sins. One such message, written by Narayan Devi just days before the deaths, read, "Only through sacrifice can we be free. The soul must be cleansed at all costs." The police had never seen anything so chilling. A grown man who had essentially pledged his life, and the lives of his family, to a cause that demanded ultimate self-destruction. It became clear that Surya Baba was not only a spiritual leader but a manipulator. He used his position of power to exploit vulnerable people like the Bhatia family, pushing them to the brink of madness. As the police delved deeper into his background, they discovered that Surya Baba had a long history of manipulation. He had been linked to a number of mysterious disappearances in other regions, all of which seemed to involve families who had come under his sway. A breakthrough in the investigation came when the authorities tracked down one of Surya Baba's former followers, a woman named Reena Patel, who had left the Guru's group after becoming disillusioned with his teachings. She described how the Guru used psychological tactics to control his followers. According to Reena, Surya Baba would isolate his followers from their families, convincing them that their loved ones were enemies of their spiritual growth. He encouraged them to sever ties with anyone who didn't subscribe to his worldview, creating a bubble of delusion where only he held the answers to life's questions. Reena revealed that Surya Baba would regularly demand acts of obedience to test his followers' devotion. At first, these tasks seemed harmless, cleaning the temple, fasting, or donating large sums of money. But over time, the rituals became increasingly extreme, leading to acts of self-harm or, in the case of the Bhatia family, ultimate sacrifice. Reena's testimony shed new light on the psychology behind the family's tragic deaths, suggesting that they had been coerced into believing that their deaths were necessary to reach spiritual purity. The police knew that they had to find Surya Baba before he could influence anyone else, but he had disappeared. The authorities suspected that he was still hiding in the area, perhaps preparing to recruit new followers, or worse, encouraging other families to follow the same deadly path. As the investigation continued, the press began to catch wind of the connection between Surya Baba and the Bhatia family's deaths. The story quickly gained national attention, and soon the public was gripped by the mystery of the Guru's influence. The authorities, however, knew they had to act quickly. They couldn't let another family fall under his control. The search for Surya Baba escalated quickly. The police scoured every lead, interviewing former followers and tracing his financial activities. Yet, despite their efforts, he seemed to have evaporated into thin air. It was as though Surya Baba had predicted this moment. His ability to disappear so completely raised suspicions that he might have planned it all along. As the days passed, the search for Surya Baba became more desperate. Police issued public appeals for any information about his whereabouts, and rumors began to swirl. Some claimed he had fled to another country, while others speculated that he might have taken refuge in a remote part of India to avoid detection. Despite this, the investigation didn't stop. Detectives began focusing on Surya Baba's followers. They hoped that one of them might lead them to the Guru, but those who remained loyal were fiercely protective of him. The police managed to convince a few former members of the group to speak out, offering insight into the Guru's manipulative tactics and his ability to control people with a mere suggestion. One key witness, a woman named Meera, recounted how Surya Baba had once said to her, "When you follow me, you must follow without question, even if it means sacrificing your life." This comment began to make more sense in the wake of the deaths of the Bhatia family. It became increasingly clear that Surya Baba's influence had been much more powerful than anyone had anticipated. With every passing day, the authorities were becoming more desperate. They feared that another tragedy could be on the horizon if Surya Baba wasn't caught soon. But as the search for the Guru continued, the tragic consequences of his teachings were becoming undeniable. Months after Surya Baba's disappearance, a crucial breakthrough came. Arvind, a former follower, stepped forward with shocking revelations. He had once been part of Surya Baba's inner circle and described how the Guru manipulated his followers. Surya Baba's teachings weren't just spiritual, they were about control, breaking people down to rebuild them in his image. Arvind revealed that the Guru had a disturbing vision of an apocalyptic event, convincing his followers that they needed to cleanse the world. Surya Baba claimed that those who followed him would be saved, and anyone who stood in their way, including family members, needed to be removed. The deaths of the Bhatia family were not accidents but sacrifices for this supposed greater good. Arvind's testimony gave the authorities the breakthrough they needed, yet the question remained, would they ever find Surya Baba, or had he disappeared forever, leaving destruction in his wake? The deeper investigators dug, the darker the story became. It wasn't just about a spiritual leader who had gone rogue, it was about a larger network of individuals willing to kill for their belief. The connections to other unexplained deaths and disappearances across the country raised questions. Was Surya Baba part of a larger cult? Was there more to this than just one family tragedy? As investigators pieced together these testimonies, a disturbing pattern emerged. Surya Baba wasn't just exploiting people for money or power, he was luring them into his orbit using psychological manipulation, convincing them that their only salvation lay in his hands. His followers believed he had divine powers, and to break free from his influence often meant risking their own lives. Then, a breakthrough came. A former follower, who had once been one of Surya Baba's closest confidants, came forward with shocking revelations. They provided investigators with a set of tapes, recordings of meetings where Surya Baba openly discussed his manipulation techniques, detailing how he would exploit his followers' vulnerabilities, their fears, and their desires. These tapes would be the key to understanding Surya Baba's true character. But as investigators listened to these tapes, they were faced with a new, terrifying realization: Surya Baba was not acting alone. There was a larger group of loyal followers who helped him carry out his twisted plans. They were ready to do whatever it took to protect him, including committing violent acts. The investigation took another chilling turn when an anonymous source revealed that Surya Baba had been planning an escape route to a foreign country. He had made connections with people in powerful circles, offering them protection in exchange for sanctuary. But these leads would lead nowhere. Surya Baba had vanished into thin air. The revelation from the hidden storage unit marked a significant turning point in the investigation. Law enforcement agencies launched a full-scale operation to apprehend Surya Baba. His followers, once loyal to him, were now being questioned relentlessly. One by one, the remaining members of his inner circle began to crack, with several of them providing information that led to the discovery of more crime scenes. The Bhatia family's house, once a place of comfort and security, was now at the center of a grisly crime scene. Investigators discovered a hidden chamber in the basement of the house, where more evidence of ritualistic activity was found. These dark secrets, combined with the testimonies of former followers, began to piece together the full extent of Surya Baba's reign of terror. Authorities learned that Surya Baba had been operating a network of sacred sites, where similar rituals and killings took place. These findings not only deepened the mystery but revealed a shocking truth. Surya Baba's influence extended far beyond the Bhatia family. As the search for Surya Baba intensified, it became clear that his influence was vast. Authorities uncovered a complex network of devoted followers spread across various parts of India. These followers, many of whom were high-ranking individuals, had blindly believed in his supernatural abilities and had participated in a variety of activities, from coercing others into joining the cult to committing acts of violence. One of the most shocking revelations came from an ex-employee of Surya Baba's operation, who disclosed how the cult leader had exploited vulnerable people. Through a combination of promises of wealth, spiritual enlightenment, and salvation, Surya Baba had ensnared wealthy businessmen, high-profile individuals, and even law enforcement officers into his web of lies. These individuals were both accomplices and victims, unaware that they were aiding in horrific crimes. The investigation revealed that many of these accomplices had been part of the deadly rituals, but their guilt was overshadowed by their blind allegiance to Surya Baba. Slowly but surely, the true extent of Surya Baba's network began to unfold. Reports from witnesses and informants placed him in various locations, from remote rural areas to hidden retreats, but he seemed to always be one step ahead of the authorities. His ability to elude capture raised more questions about his true capabilities. Had he anticipated his downfall, or was he simply a master of deception and evasion? Despite the authorities' best efforts, Surya Baba remained elusive, turning the search for him into a nationwide manhunt. The investigation grew more desperate, as it became clear that time was running out to bring him to justice. Just when the investigation seemed to hit a dead end, an unexpected breakthrough occurred. One of Surya Baba's former associates, who had been in hiding, contacted the authorities with crucial information. The tip led to a breakthrough. Surya Baba had been using a network of underground safe houses that were well hidden in the most unlikely of places, abandoned temples and hidden sanctuaries, which he had set up to keep his operation running. One of the locations turned out to be a pivotal discovery. Inside an abandoned temple deep in the forest, authorities found documents and symbols that indicated Surya Baba's intent to start a larger, nationwide movement, a spiritual awakening, built upon violence and fear. The documents revealed disturbing details about his future plans. It was now clear that he had intended to spread his influence further, turning his twisted ideologies into a cult of widespread destruction. If not stopped, his movement could have led to untold suffering for countless others. After months of hunting and gathering evidence, the authorities finally cornered Surya Baba in a remote area near the border of India. The final confrontation was nothing short of a battle, as Surya Baba, now desperate and cornered, attempted to escape once again. Surya Baba, always a master manipulator, tried to use his former followers as human shields, but law enforcement was prepared. After a tense standoff, Surya Baba was captured and brought to justice. In the end, the shocking truth about his criminal activities came to light. He had used his charm, spiritual manipulation, and extreme violence to build a criminal empire that spanned beyond the Bhatia family. Surya Baba's capture marked the end of an era of terror, but the scars left on his victims would last a lifetime. The Bhatia family, who had been subjected to unimaginable horrors, were left to rebuild their lives, while the nation tried to come to terms with the extent of Surya Baba's criminal network. The story of Surya Baba serves as a chilling reminder of the dangers of blind faith and manipulation, and the devastating effects of a person who uses their influence to control and harm others. The truth, though delayed, was finally uncovered, and justice was served, but at a great cost. Thank you for watching.